Now, the West has been closely watching as Russia-India-China camaraderie was in full display, signaling the rise of a new trilateral power bloc. The Modi-Putin bonhomie was in full display in Tianjin ahead of the India-Russia bilateral. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Putin hugged, shook hands, and even carpooled in Putin's Aurus. Putin waited 10 minutes for Prime Minister Modi, and the two held a 45-minute chat en route. In fact, they waited at the destination and continued their chat in car only. During the talks with President Putin, Prime Minister Modi said all recent efforts to establish peace in Ukraine are welcome, stressing the need to find concrete ways to achieve this goal. He added that close cooperation between India and Russia is vital for global stability and prosperity. Putin hailed Prime Minister Modi as a dear friend, calling their meetings memorable. He said India and Russia cooperate closely through the UN, BRICS and SCO, share a privileged strategic partnership, and their talks will further strengthen ties. Now, joining us live from Tianjin is Gaurav Sawant. Gaurav, that meeting is extremely interesting. You know, the bilateral, of course, happened and lots was discussed there. But the car ride was extremely interesting too. And also the 45-minute wait inside the car, outside the venue. What is that all about? Because, you know, leaders like that rarely get privacy that you get in a car.
That's a very interesting point that you make, and you're absolutely right. Amazing optics, a huge signal that goes out from Tianjin, a signal that's going out from China. When you see that picture of President Xi Jinping, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and the Russian President Vladimir Putin together, that picture, set the internet on fire. But that wasn't the only one. The most searched video on Weibo, the net here, is Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Russian President Vladimir Putin together. President Putin was waiting for Prime Minister Narendra Modi in his car, and he had to wait for about 10 minutes. By the time Prime Minister finished and came out, they sat together, drove together and talked together. It's interesting, this conversation that took place inside that car, that picture that went out, and the Prime Minister using social media platform to say every conversation with President Putin is very insightful. The conversations, apart from that invitation to President Putin to visit India in December for the annual summit between the Indian Prime Minister and the Russian President, they talked about fertilizers. Now, fertilizers is key in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's scheme of things. As far as the Indian farmer is concerned, fertilizers from Russia and fertilizers from China are both equally important. They talked about space cooperation. That is one area where both India and Russia have cooperated extensively. Defense cooperation and this cooperation that goes on in multiple areas. But what's the message here, Anjali? The pressure that United States has tried to mount on India repeatedly for weeks, if not months, with the American President Donald Trump hitting out at procurement of oil, imposing additional tariffs on India, Peter Navarro repeatedly hitting out at India, calling it Modi's war, saying Brahmins in India are profiting from this oil trade. All of that, it made no difference to India. And that message has gone out loud and clear. America cannot bully India, America cannot browbeat India, and India will not be bullied by any country in the world. We've seen this during Operation Sindoor. Even if China and Pakistan came together, on the 10th of May, India came out on tops, despite all the military hardware that may have been used from anywhere in the world. India-Russia cooperation remains strong, from the S-400 system to the BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles to the Su-30 MKIs, and more ways than one. And it goes on to indicate that India will continue not just to procure oil from Russia, but deepen this time-tested strategic partnership. Now it's for the world to decide how they want to take forward ties with India. Do they want to aggravate it even further, or furiously backpedal? There are some who argue that Trump always chickens out. We need to see whether he aggravates it further, or is there a rapprochement on the cards?
Right, absolutely. And the point of the fertilizer is so pertinent because India is facing urea shortage, and China and Russia are one of the biggest exporters to India. But do tell us one thing. Let's also look at the optics of it. The three big figures of this SCO meet, the three big leaders, India, China and Russia. When we see the three of them together, can you tell me how each of them has won something they really wanted?
So if we were to talk about optics, Russia has been able to send out that message, it's not isolated. And clearly Russia is not isolated. When the world's most populous countries, the two most populous countries, India 1.4 billion population, China 1.4 billion population, so leaders of 2.8 billion people on the planet, they're friends with Russia, and they're very proud of that friendship with Russia. It's not as if they're embarrassed about it. And despite a lot of Western pressure, they've tried to actually embarrass India to abandon Russia, and that clearly hasn't happened despite this effort going on for quite some time. That narrative building of the West, it's flopped this time. And why has it flopped? Because India put facts out in public domain. India exposed the American doublespeak. Europe continues to take gas from Russia. Largest procurement of gas from Russia is by European Union, and yet sanctions are being imposed on India. China is the largest importer of oil, and yet sanctions are being imposed on India. That, India says, is completely unacceptable in today's day and age. With this, all these facts are out in public domain. In fact, there are many within the United States who are criticizing Trump for pushing India closer to China. It's a big, a big win as China may want to showcase it. Look at the number of people who are here.
Right.
10 members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, then SCO plus, then 10 intergovernmental organizations and world bodies, including United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres were here. The Russian president was here. So it's a big win for all three, for India, for Russia, and for China.
Right.